Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Earth. As you close your eyes and let your thoughts drift into the quiet, imagine yourself standing in the wide expanse of time. Not a year, not a century, not even 1,000 generations, but the full length of Earth's story, a tale so vast that your own existence becomes no more than a single heartbeat in an ocean of ages. We often think of history as the record of kings and kingdoms, of inventions and discoveries, of wars and wonders. Yet all of those memories, everything humanity has ever achieved, rests upon a stage that is billions of years older and destined to continue long after we're gone. This is the truth of our place. We are a brief moment in time, a flicker of thought upon a planet that has known silence for far longer than it has known words. A quick spark, delicate, fragile and luminous, set against a backdrop of cycles that roll on without pause. It is both humbling and strangely comforting. Picture the Earth before we arrived. For more than 4 billion years it turned beneath the sun, wrapped in storms, oceans and mountains that cared nothing for the idea of humanity. The first continents formed and broke apart. Deserts shifted, seas flooded the land. Glaciers carved valleys deep into stone, and entire worlds of life rose and vanished. In all of that vastness, our presence is recent, almost invisible. If the planet's story were a book stretched across 1,000 pages, humanity would appear in only the last line, perhaps even the final word. And yet, within that line, we feel so much. We imagine permanence in our cities, in our languages, in the stories we tell. We fill our days with urgency and with purpose, forgetting how brief they are compared to the slow rhythms of the Earth itself. If you listen carefully, though, you might hear the planet whispering something older, something deeper. It reminds us that we are part of a continuum far greater than ourselves, a tide that carries all things forward. When you walk in a forest, you're surrounded by echoes of the past. Each tree stretches back through seasons you've never seen, drinking from soils rich with the remnants of countless lives that came before. The air you breathe was shaped by ancient oceans and early forms of life that transformed the atmosphere long before humans dreamed of civilization. Even the stones beneath your feet were once liquid fire, cooled and folded by ages of pressure, shaped by forces beyond imagining. These are the quiet reminders of how brief we are, and yet how deeply connected we remain to everything that has ever been. Think of time not as a line, but as an ocean. We drift upon its surface for a moment, lifted by its waves, then vanish into its depths. The ocean continues, endlessly flowing, carrying with it the memories of all that came before. Humanity too is carried. Our birth, our rise, our triumphs and struggles, they all belong to the same current. We are not outside of it, but within it, inseparable from the great tide of Earth's story. And so this reflection begins here, in the awareness that we are temporary. Our place is not eternal, though we may wish it to be. But there is no sorrow in this. Instead, there is beauty. For in our briefness lies the chance to notice, to feel, to reflect. We are sparks that light the dark for a moment, and in that moment, the universe sees itself. Imagine yourself drifting back through the years, past your own lifetime, past the generations before you, past the rise of empires and the first planting of fields, past even the shaping of words and the discovery of fire. Keep moving until the traces of humanity vanish completely. What remains is the Earth as it was without us. Oceans swelling against empty shores, winds carving mountains, glaciers spreading like rivers of glass. The planet was alive long before it ever carried our names. It will be alive long after. But here, in this present, we breathe, we think, we build, and we dream. And perhaps that is what makes this brief moment so precious. For all the vastness of time, there is only one instant in which you exist, only one window in which humanity can speak, can wonder, can reflect on what it means to be here at all. Sometimes we fear the thought of impermanence. We cling to the hope that our monuments, our ideas, our achievements will endure forever. But the truth is softer and perhaps kinder. Nothing must last forever to have meaning. The cherry blossom does not need eternity to be beautiful. It needs only its brief season, its fleeting bloom, its delicate fall to the ground. Humanity too is like this, a season in the earth's story, fleeting and fragile and all the more wondrous because of it. In the stillness of night, as you listen to this journey unfold, imagine looking up at the stars. They too remind you of time's scale. Some of the light you see has travelled for millions of years, leaving its home long before our species existed. Yet here it is, arriving in this moment, brushing against your eyes. The stars remind us that moments, however brief, can bridge the expanse of time. Our presence, our voice, our reflection might one day ripple outward, touching a future we cannot yet imagine. And so, welcome to this brief moment in time. It is all we have, and it is enough. It is the point where past and future meet, the still centre of a turning wheel. From here we can look backward into the depths of Earth's ancient past and forward into the mysteries of its future. We can wonder what it means to be alive at all, in a universe that could so easily have remained silent. The Earth has seen so much before us, and it will see so much after. Mountains will rise and fall, oceans will open and close, entire climates will shift, and life itself will transform in ways we cannot yet imagine. Against all of this, we are but a whisper, but we are a whisper filled with awareness, and in that awareness lies the chance to see the beauty of it all. Close your eyes now and picture the earth as it turns slowly in the void. Clouds drift across its face, continents gleam in the sunlight, and dark oceans stretch endlessly below. It looks eternal, steady, unchanging. But within it flows time itself, reshaping everything, carrying it all forward. Humanity is there, a trace upon its surface, a brief but brilliant flash in the endless unfolding. And so we begin our journey together, with humility and with wonder. For this is not just the story of humanity, it is the story of Earth, and we are but one of its many moments. To reflect on that is not to diminish ourselves, but to deepen our sense of belonging. We are here, now, and that is enough. This is our brief moment in time, fragile and fleeting, yet infinite in meaning. Long before the first human ever opened their eyes to the morning sun, long before the first cities rose or the first stories were told around firelight, Earth had already lived through billions of years. To us, a single lifetime feels vast, a century almost impossible to imagine, and yet the planet carries memories written not in decades, but in eons. To think of this scale is to step outside the rhythm of daily time and into a far deeper silence, where each passing age is as gentle and steady as the tide. Close your eyes and imagine the beginning, the Earth, 4.5 billion years ago, a newborn world forming from the dust of ancient stars. The sky above would not have been blue, but heavy with ash and vapour, thick clouds gathering in a restless atmosphere. Lava surged across the surface, carving rivers of fire that met crashing waves of steam. The young planet was not calm, not yet. It was a place of storms and shadows, of collisions and reshaping. But it was alive, not in the way we understand life now, but alive with motion, with heat, with promise. Those early days stretched into millions of years and millions into billions. Slowly, continents began to form, drifting like islands upon molten seas deep beneath the crust. The first oceans filled their basins, carved from vapour that fell as endless rain. Lightning split the skies, thunder rolled across the world, and all the while the planet endured. There was no rush, no urgency. The earth moved at the pace of deep time, far beyond the reach of human imagination. If you try to picture this, it is difficult, because our minds are built to hold moments, not epochs. To us, 1,000 years is ancient. To the earth, it is the blink of an eye. Whole mountain ranges can rise and vanish within the span of a few 100 million years. Oceans can form, expand and dry away into deserts. Continents drift together, then break apart again, like pieces of a slow, patient puzzle. This is the language of the planet, spoken in stone and water, written across the surface in shapes too large to notice in a single lifetime. Long before we came, other forms of life had their chance. The first cells stirred in those ancient oceans, so small they could not be seen with the naked eye. They multiplied, adapted, and transformed the very air we breathe. For billions of years, these tiny architects shaped the world, creating the foundation upon which everything else would one day grow. From them came plants, and from plants, animals, and from animals, the endless branching tree of life. Many of those branches have long since broken away, whole worlds of creatures rising and vanishing into extinction, leaving behind only fossils, faint impressions of what once was. Imagine walking across a desert plain today and finding a shell embedded in stone, a creature that once swam in an ocean that no longer exists. That single fossil carries the weight of ages, a message from a world older than memory, and for every fossil discovered there are countless others hidden in the deep layers of earth, each one a whisper from a time before us. There were ages of ice when glaciers stretched across the continents, carving valleys and grinding mountains into dust. There were ages of warmth when tropical seas covered the land and strange creatures thrived in jungles that now lie beneath frozen tundra. There were mass extinctions, moments when the balance of life shattered, when nearly everything vanished, only for the planet to begin again, reshaping itself anew. Through all of this, the Earth remained. It changed, it evolved, but it endured, carrying life forward through trial and transformation. And then, at last, much later, humans appeared. Not at the beginning of the story, not even in the middle, but very near the end, in the last fraction of time. If you condensed Earth's entire history into a single day, humanity would arrive only in the final seconds before midnight. Everything we know, everything we have ever created, exists within those seconds. The billions of years before us would fill the entire day, ages upon ages where the world turned without ever knowing our name. What would it have been like to witness those long ages, to see continents drift like slow ships across an endless ocean, to watch great forests rise and then sink beneath the waves, to see creatures unlike anything we know walk the earth, only to vanish again, leaving behind no more than a trace in stone? There is wonder in imagining it, though none of us could ever truly be there. The scale of those years is too great for human senses to grasp, and yet the evidence is all around us. The mountains, the rocks, the very air you breathe, each holds the memory of those billions of years. The Earth story before us is not separate from our own. It shaped the conditions for our existence. The first life created oxygen, the continents offered land to walk upon, the changing climate carved the pathways where humans would one day survive. Everything that we are was prepared by the ages before us, as if the planet was writing a long and patient introduction to the brief chapter of humanity. There is humility in knowing this, and also peace. We are not the beginning, and we will not be the end. We are part of something larger, a thread in a tapestry too vast to see in full. When we measure ourselves against this deep time, our worries and conflicts seem small, yet our presence also feels miraculous. Out of billions of years, we are here, now, aware of the story itself. That awareness is rare, perhaps unique, and it is what gives our moment its meaning. Imagine standing on a cliff, looking out over an ancient ocean. Waves crash against the rocks, just as they have done for countless millennia. The sound you hear is timeless, unchanged by the rise or fall of civilizations. That same rhythm echoed through the air long before humans walked the earth, and it will echo long after. To listen is to connect with something beyond the span of a human life, something eternal in its flow. As the night deepens and the mind softens, let yourself drift into the thought of these billions of years. Let the weight of time roll gently across you, not heavy, but comforting. For in that scale, everything finds its place. The earth has endured storms greater than any we can imagine, yet it continues to turn, steady beneath the stars, and in this turning we find our own small moment, precious and fleeting. The billions of years before us are not lost. They are carried within the earth, within the air, within the oceans, and in quiet ways they are carried within us as well. The atoms in your body were forged in ancient stars, scattered across space long before the earth existed. The water you drink may once have flowed through the veins of prehistoric forests. The very iron in your blood was born in explosions that lit the universe long before life stirred on this planet. You're not separate from the billions of years before you. You are their continuation, their living echo. And so, when you consider the long span of time before humanity, do not think of it as empty. It is full, overflowing with change, with life, with stories etched into stone and sea. It is the foundation upon which everything rests, the canvas upon which the fleeting image of humanity has been painted. To reflect upon it is not to diminish ourselves, but to deepen our wonder at being here at all. The earth is old, far older than we can easily grasp, but in its age lies a kind of serenity. It reminds us that everything passes, everything changes, and yet life continues, reshaped, reborn, carried forward. We are a part of that continuity, one more expression of the planet's long and patient story. And as we move forward, it is worth remembering. We stand not at the beginning, but near the end of a very long journey. And that makes our moment not small, but infinitely precious. In the vast sweep of Earth's story, life has not been a steady flame, but a flickering one, sometimes burning brightly, sometimes nearly extinguished, sometimes transforming so completely that the world itself seemed reborn. We often think of life as continuous, as if it has always moved forward toward us, but the truth is more fragile, more mysterious. Life has risen in splendour many times, and it has vanished just as often, leaving behind only whispers in stone, shadows of worlds that no longer exist. Picture the earliest seas billions of years ago. In those waters, invisible to the naked eye, the first simple organisms floated. They were not plants, not animals, but tiny cells, fragile yet persistent. For countless ages they were the only form of life, endlessly dividing, slowly adapting, leaving almost no trace except for the changes they made to the planet itself. These cells, so small and unassuming, began to breathe out oxygen, a gas that at first was toxic to much of life on Earth. But over time that oxygen filled the skies, turning the atmosphere into something new, something capable of supporting the vast diversity of life that would one day follow. It is strange to imagine that life's first great transformation was also a catastrophe. For countless ancient organisms, the arrival of oxygen was deadly, wiping them from existence. And yet, from that destruction came possibility. The air we breathe today is a gift from that ancient upheaval, a reminder that even in endings, beginnings can be found. As ages passed, life grew more complex. Cells began to work together, forming new structures, new possibilities. Tiny colonies became the ancestors of plants and animals, and the oceans filled with strange shapes, some soft-bodied, some armoured with shells. In the ancient seas of the Cambrian period, more than 500 million years ago, life exploded into variety. Creatures crawled, swam, and hunted in ways never seen before. Imagine drifting through those waters, giant trilobites scuttling along the seafloor, strange, spiny creatures gliding past, and the first predators lunging through the currents with unfamiliar jaws. It was a time of experimentation, when nature seemed to try every shape, every strategy, as if sketching out the endless forms that would one day appear. But as quickly as these worlds rose, many of them disappeared. Entire lineages of creatures, once thriving, now lie buried in stone, their shapes preserved as fossils. They remind us that what we see today is not the full story, but only the survivors of countless forgotten experiments. Each extinction was both an ending and a clearing, making room for new life to take hold. The Earth has known at least 5 great mass extinctions, each one reshaping the path of life. The first wiped out many of the ocean's strange early creatures. The second devastated coral reefs and left seas nearly barren. The third, the most severe, struck around 250 million years ago and is sometimes called the Great Dying. In that single event, nearly 90% of life vanished, both in the seas and on land. Imagine a silence falling across the planet, forests withering, oceans emptying, skies heavy with volcanic ash. For a time, the Earth seemed almost bare again, a world stripped of its vibrancy. And yet, in time, life returned. From that devastation, new creatures emerged. Reptiles grew larger, stronger, more diverse, giving rise to the age of the dinosaurs. For millions of years they ruled the earth, filling every corner of the land, the air and the sea. Dinosaurs were not a brief chapter, as we often imagine, but a reign that lasted far longer than all of human history combined. Entire civilizations of these creatures came and went, their bones settling into the earth as quiet reminders of their time. And then, in another sudden turn, they too were gone. 66 million years ago, an asteroid struck the Earth, shrouding it in dust and fire. Forests burned, oceans boiled, and skies darkened. The dinosaurs, once the great rulers of the world, perished in a span that was swift in the scale of geologic time. And yet again, their absence made room for something new. In the silence they left behind, small mammals began to thrive. From those survivors, our own story would eventually unfold. When we look at these patterns, we see a rhythm, a rising, a flourishing, and a vanishing. Life surges forward, fills the world with diversity, and then, through catastrophe, much of it disappears. But always, something remains. Always, life finds a way to begin again, shaped by what has passed but never stopped entirely. It is as if the earth is a patient artist, painting with life, erasing, and then painting again, each version different from the last, each one preparing the way for the next. If you close your eyes, you might imagine walking through one of those vanished worlds, a swamp filled with towering ferns and dragonflies the size of hawks, a shallow sea where armoured fish glide slowly through the light, a forest echoing with the heavy footsteps of dinosaurs, or the soft calls of early mammals hiding in the shadows. Each of these worlds was real, lived in, thriving for millions of years. To those creatures, Their time was complete, their world was the only one, and yet from our perspective they were only moments, chapters that opened and closed before humanity arrived. There is a quiet lesson in this, a reminder that life is both fragile and enduring. Entire species, entire ecosystems can vanish, and yet life as a whole persists, reshaping itself, continuing in new forms. Our own existence is built upon those cycles. Without the extinctions, without the vanishings, there would be no space for us. We are not separate from the long chain of the life, but one more link carried forward by the survivors of all that came before. Even now, deep beneath the soil, in layers of rock, the imprints of those lost creatures remain. Fossils are not just bones, they are time itself captured in stone. To hold a fossil in your hand is to touch a moment millions of years gone, a life that once walked, swam or flew, now reduced to a silent outline. Yet within that outline is a reminder, life has always been larger than us, and it will always continue in some form long after us. As the night quiets and thoughts drift like leaves on a current, let yourself sink into this vision of Earth's past. Picture the rise and fall of countless worlds, each one complete in its own time. The oceans filled and emptied, forests grew and vanished, creatures lived and passed away, and through it all, the Earth remained. Life rose, life vanished, and life rose again. The story has never truly ended. Perhaps that is the comfort to be found in these vanished worlds, that endings are not final, that they make way for beginnings, and that our own presence is not an accident, but part of a long, unbroken chain. We walk upon the bones of the past, and we breathe the air made by ancient lives. We are the inheritors of all that has come before, the living continuation of Earth's great experiment. And so, when you think of the lives that rose and vanished long ago, do not think only of loss. Think of the vastness of time, the resilience of life, the way the Earth has carried forward again and again. Each vanished world is still here in some way, hidden in stone, written in the air, carried in the atoms of our own bodies. To reflect on this is to feel not only small, but connected to everything that ever was and to everything that will come after. The Earth has always been in motion, not just through space, but within itself, cycling through rhythms so vast and patient that they almost escape our imagination. From the churning of its molten heart to the slow drift of continents across the oceans, from the waxing and waning of ice sheets to the rise and fall of sea levels, our planet has never stood still. To see Earth clearly is to understand it as a place of cycles, cycles of stone and water, of air and fire, of life and death. These cycles stretch across billions of years, repeating themselves with a rhythm that feels both eternal and fragile, and we are but a brief breath within them. Imagine looking at the Earth not in days or years, but in epochs. The passing of a century becomes a flicker. The sweep of 1,000,000 years becomes a single inhalation. Through such a lens you would see mountains rising and wearing away, seas forming and retreating, climates warming and cooling in great undulating waves. You would see continents separating like drifting rafts, colliding again in slow-motion embraces, creating ranges of mountains higher than any today, only to be ground back into sand by wind and rain. These cycles have always governed the world of life. The shifting of continents changes ocean currents, and with them the patterns of climate. The tilt of the Earth alters the length of seasons, drawing glaciers forward or pulling them back. Volcanic eruptions darken skies, cool the planet, and then enrich the soil for the forests that will follow. Even the orbits of other planets in the solar system tug gently at our world, influencing cycles of ice and warmth. It is a symphony of forces, each one layered upon the other, each one shaping the environment in which life must find its way. If you were to stand on the shore of an ancient ocean, perhaps 500 million years ago, the land behind you would have looked unfamiliar. The continents were arranged in patterns long erased, the air held different proportions of gases, and the waters before you were rich with minerals that today would seem alien. And yet, that ocean was part of the same cycle. The endless circulation of water from sea to sky, from rain to river, from river to sea again. That cycle has never ceased, reshaping itself to fit each new age, carrying the memory of every storm that has ever fallen. Water itself tells the story of cycles most clearly. Every drop has travelled countless paths, falling as rain, seeping into stone, rising again as vapour, or flowing through the veins of living things. The water you drink tonight has been part of oceans that covered continents, glaciers that reached the equator, rivers that carved canyons, and perhaps even the cells of creatures long gone. Nothing in it is new, yet everything in it feels fresh, as if each turn of the cycle is both a continuation and a renewal. The same is true of air. The oxygen you breathe is not original to this planet's beginning. It was crafted by ancient life, released into the atmosphere by the tiny blue-green organisms of the seas. Every breath you take carries atoms that have cycled through countless lungs, countless forests, countless ages. They have been part of mammoths and dinosaurs, part of volcanic eruptions and ancient storms. They are the same molecules that once filled the lungs of early humans who first gazed at the stars and wondered about their place in the world. To breathe is to join in a cycle older than any species, a reminder that we're never apart from the flow of Earth's story. Even stone, which seems eternal and unmoving, is part of the cycle. Mountains rise through the slow collision of continents, but they do not last forever. Rain, frost, and wind wear them down, grain by grain, until they return to the sea as sand. From that sand, new layers of rock are formed, pressed together by time and pressure, rising once again as new mountains in another age. The stones beneath your feet have lived many lives, been many forms, in cycles so vast that they cannot be measured by a human lifetime. And then, of course, there are the cycles of life. Species rise, flourish, and fade away, only for new ones to emerge. Forests grow, burn, and return. Oceans teem with abundance, then empty in times of extinction, only to fill again with new shapes, new strategies. The earth has known countless forms of life, yet life itself has never ceased. It adapts, transforms, and continues, always woven into the cycles of climate and geology, always rising to meet the shifting world. You might picture these cycles like waves upon a shore, some small and quick, others vast and slow. A tide rises and falls within hours. An ice age advances and retreats over tens of thousands of years, and the drifting of continents plays out over hundreds of millions. Yet all of them are part of the same pattern, the same endless movement. To watch the earth is to see not permanence, but flow. And within these flows are moments of balance, times when the cycles align to create stability. There have been long stretches when the climate was mild, when life flourished in abundance, when ecosystems reached a kind of harmony. But these moments never last forever. Change always comes, sometimes slowly, sometimes in sudden surges. And each time life must adjust, finding new forms, new paths, or fading away. If you close your eyes now, you might imagine the earth breathing, not in the way a creature breathes, but in the rise and fall of its cycles, the slow inhalation of glaciers advancing, the long exhalation of glaciers retreating, the deep pulse of volcanoes shaping the land, then falling silent, only to awaken again, the rhythmic drift of continents across the face of the world, opening oceans and closing them, joining lands and dividing them. Each of these movements is part of a larger rhythm, a cosmic dance that has been unfolding since the planet was born. For humanity, living within such cycles is both a challenge and a gift. We often think of ourselves as separate, as if our cities and technologies lift us outside the natural flow. But we're not apart from these rhythms. We grow food in soil shaped by ancient volcanic eruptions. We drink water that has cycled through ice ages. We breathe air that carries the memory of early life. Our civilizations rise in times of stability and falter in times of great change, just as forests grow in summer and thin in winter. To recognize this is to see that we are not masters of the cycles, but participants within them. And one day, just as species and civilizations before us, we too will pass, folded back into the rhythm of Earth. Our monuments will crumble into stone, our metals will rust into the soil, our stories will dissolve into dust, and still the cycles will continue. Mountains will rise and fall, seas will advance and retreat, forests will grow and vanish, long after we are gone. The Earth does not stop. It moves endlessly forward, carrying the memory of all that has passed, creating space for all that will come. There is a quiet comfort in knowing this. Though our lives are brief, though our presence is fragile, we are part of something vast, something that endures. The cycles of Earth connect us to the deep past, to the vanished worlds of dinosaurs and trilobites, to the first forests and the earliest seas, and they connect us to the future, to the worlds that will exist after us, shaped by the same rhythms, bound to the same flows. As the night deepens and your thoughts soften, let yourself drift with the rhythm of the Earth. Feel the slow pulse of its cycles, the rise and fall, the endless motion. Know that you are a part of this motion, a single note in the great song of time. And though our note may fade, the song will continue, as it always has, as it always will. From the vast cycles of Earth, unfolding like waves across billions of years, there came at last a moment when something new and delicate appeared, something almost improbable. Life, in its simplest form, had already filled oceans and crept into shallow seas. It had endured extinction and survived upheavals, but the spark that would eventually lead to us was still waiting, fragile and hidden within the immensity of time. Our beginning was not a thunderous arrival, but a quiet one, like a faint glow flickering in the night, almost lost against the endless darkness. Imagine standing on the shoreline of an ancient world 3 million years ago. The land is wild and raw, covered in grasses with scattered forests stretching toward the horizon. Herds of animals move across the plains, their shapes familiar and yet slightly strange. Some resemble the antelopes and elephants we know today, while others belong to lines of creatures that no longer exist. And among them, walking upright for the first time, are figures that seem both like us and unlike us. Their hands are free to grasp tools, their eyes scan the horizon with curiosity and caution. Their voices are not yet words, but carry the beginnings of meaning. These were our ancestors, fragile, vulnerable, but carrying within them the spark of something extraordinary. The human story begins not with civilization or technology, but with survival. Early hominins lived at the mercy of predators, of storms, of droughts. Their tools were simple stones, their shelters no more than what nature provided. Yet even in this fragile state, there was resilience. They learned to shape stone into edges sharp enough to cut, to crack bones for the nourishment hidden inside, to stand together against the dangers of the night. Every small act of survival was a step forward, a quiet declaration that life could endure, even in its most vulnerable form. Fire, when it came, was not just a discovery but a transformation. To tame fire was to hold a piece of the sun, to push back against the darkness and the cold. Fire gave warmth in freezing nights, protection from prowling beasts, and the power to cook food, unlocking more energy than raw flesh or roots could provide. Around fires, groups gathered, and something new began to take shape. In the flicker of flames, voices became stories, gestures became teaching, and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. In that fragile spark of firelight, the seeds of culture were planted. But even with fire, life remained uncertain. The earth itself was unpredictable. Shifts in climate reshaped the world again and again, testing the endurance of these early people. There were times of lush abundance, when rivers ran strong and animals filled the plains. And there were times of hunger, when cold spread across the land, or droughts withered the grasses, leaving only dust behind. Each shift was a trial, pressing humanity toward greater ingenuity. It was within this fragility that adaptability became our greatest strength. Consider the tools in those days: stones shaped by hand, bones sharpened into points, spears carved from wood. They were simple, yet in them lay the beginnings of technology. With tools, humans could hunt not only the small and weak, but the great animals of their time. With tools they could build shelters, fashion clothing, and create art upon cave walls. Each invention was fragile at first, easily lost, easily forgotten, but each one carried the potential to transform. The fragility of our beginnings was not only physical but also social. Humanity survived not through strength alone, but through connection. A single individual could not endure the hardships of that age, but a group could. Together they could hunt, share food, protect children, and care for the wounded or the elderly. Within these early groups, bonds of trust were forged, and the first roots of compassion took hold. The survival of one became the survival of many, and in this fragile interdependence something deeply human was born. And always there was curiosity. You might imagine one of these early ancestors standing at the edge of a valley, watching the horizon not only for danger, but with wonder. The sky was filled with stars, vast and silent. The earth beneath their feet was rich with mysteries, plants to be tasted, rivers to be followed, caves to be explored. Curiosity may have been fragile, easily dimmed by hunger or fear, but it never disappeared. It lingered within the human spark, pushing outward, urging exploration. Over time, fragility gave way to resilience. The human spark spread across continents, adapting to deserts, forests, tundras, and mountains. Each new place offered challenges: heat, cold, predators, scarcity. And yet each new place was met with ingenuity. To cross rivers, rafts were built. To face the cold, furs were sewn into clothing. To store memory, symbols were carved and painted. Fragile beginnings grew roots, and those roots spread across the earth. Still, fragility was never far away. Many branches of humanity didn't survive. Entire lineages rose and vanished, their bones left in caves, their tools buried in the dust. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and others lived, thrived, and then were gone. Only one branch remained to carry the spark forward: our branch. The survival of Homo sapiens was never certain, never inevitable. It was the result of countless chance events, choices and adaptations, each one fragile, each one capable of being undone. And yet, from these uncertain beginnings came language, art, and culture. What began as gestures and sounds grew into words, and words grew into stories. On cave walls, animals ran in ochre and charcoal, not just for survival, but for expression. Songs were sung, perhaps first to soothe children or accompany rituals, but soon they became carriers of memory and emotion. Fragile at first, like whispers in the dark, These creations endured, passing across generations, shaping identity and meaning. The fragility of our beginnings reminds us that humanity is not separate from the Earth's cycles, but part of them. We were shaped by fire and ice, by abundance and famine, by the shifting of climates and the migrations of animals. We're not apart from these forces. We are their outcome. Our beginnings were not the triumph of will alone, but the delicate balance of chance and environment, of resilience and fragility entwined. When you think of humanity now, our cities that glow at night, our machines that cross the skies, our voices carried across the planet, you might see strength and permanence. But beneath it all lies the memory of fragility. We began as a small spark, easily extinguished, surviving by adapting, by connecting, by enduring. That memory is still within us, a quiet reminder that we are both powerful and vulnerable, both resilient and dependent on the world around us. So as you let your mind drift deeper into quiet thought, picture that fragile beginning, the first fire flickering in the dark, the first words spoken across a circle of faces, the first steps taken across vast plains, all of it fragile, all of it miraculous, and all of it leading in time to us. The spark was small, but it endured, and in its endurance it shaped everything that followed. From the fragile spark of our beginning, humanity carried forward not only survival, but imagination. And with imagination came achievement, small at first, like ripples spreading across still water, but soon growing into waves that reshaped the story of the earth itself. When we look back across the vastness of time, the things we now call progress appear not as sudden leaps, but as steady accumulations, layer upon layer, like stones carefully placed to build a path across a river. Each invention, each discovery, was another stone, allowing us to cross into new worlds of possibility. Imagine the first time a seed was deliberately placed in the soil, not by chance, but by choice. For countless millennia, humans roamed as wanderers, following the rhythms of the land, gathering what the earth provided, and hunting what they could. Life was bound to the cycles of the seasons, fragile, uncertain. But one day, perhaps by accident, perhaps by curiosity, someone saw that plants could be coaxed into growing where hands had prepared the earth. And with that, agriculture was born, not in a single place, not in a single moment, but again and again, across the world, wherever people lived close enough to the land to notice its secrets. The achievement of agriculture was not just about food, it was about time. With fields that could be planted and harvested, humans no longer had to move constantly across the land. Villages grew, then towns, and with them came permanence. The human story shifted from wandering to dwelling, from surviving to building. And with building came storage, surplus and trade. Grain could be gathered, clay shaped into jars, and soon one group's harvest became another's meal. From the soil rose not just crops, but economies, connections, and civilizations. Consider, too, the invention of writing. For hundreds of thousands of years, human memory lived only in the fragile thread of voice and story, passed from parent to child, elder to youth. But memory is fragile, and words can be lost when voices fade. The first marks on clay or carved into stone were more than symbols. They were extensions of memory itself. Writing allowed ideas to endure across generations, to travel beyond the boundaries of a single life. In these marks, laws were set, stories preserved, knowledge recorded. The earth itself became a library, its surface etched with the minds of those who lived upon it. The shaping of metals was another milestone, a quiet revolution that transformed what humans could create. From soft copper to strong bronze and later to iron, humanity learned to turn the elements of the earth into tools that could dig deeper, cut sharper and last longer. With metal came stronger ploughs, better weapons, and enduring structures. The achievements of this age were not only practical but symbolic. Bronze statues, iron bells, objects that carried not just function but meaning, reflections of the societies that crafted them. And then, there were the great cities. Imagine walking through the narrow streets of Uruk or Thebes, or standing before the pyramids rising from the desert sands. To build on such a scale was to reach beyond survival into vision. Each stone lifted, each wall raised, each temple carved was a testament not only to human strength, but to collective effort. People came together, guided by leaders, priests, or shared belief, and together they made marks on the land so large they seemed to touch the sky. In these cities, art flourished, markets bustled, and knowledge was exchanged across cultures. Humanity's achievements were no longer local. They were shared, traded, and spread, like seeds carried by the wind, and always achievements built upon one another. From the wheel to the sail, from the compass to the map, humans expanded their reach, exploring seas, mountains, and deserts. The world grew smaller as connections grew wider. Silk travelled from one continent to another, ideas crossed from east to west, and with every exchange humanity learned more about itself. The age of exploration was not only about discovering lands, but about discovering possibilities, what humans could endure, what they could imagine, and what they could become. Perhaps one of the most profound achievements was science itself. Long before it had a name, humans had observed the patterns of the stars, the rising and falling of the sun, the phases of the moon. But in time, observation became inquiry, and inquiry became understanding. To ask not just what the world was, but why it was so, that was a turning point. Science gave humans tools to peer into the very fabric of nature, to measure time with precision, to predict the movement of planets, to uncover the hidden laws of matter. With this understanding, humanity gained not only power but perspective. We were no longer merely part of the cycles of Earth. We were observers of them, interpreters of them, seekers of their hidden truths. Then came machines, the hum of gears, the rush of steam, the flicker of electricity. Each was a sound of transformation. The industrial age was unlike anything before it, accelerating change at a pace that astonished even those who lived through it. Trains cut across landscapes, factories rose against skylines, and the rhythm of life quickened. What once took weeks could now be done in days. What once took hands could now be done by engines. With machines came both abundance and challenge, more goods, more connection, but also more demands upon the earth itself. And yet, even this was only a beginning. For beyond machines came the invisible achievements, the harnessing of electricity, the sending of voices through wires, the capturing of light in photographs, the flight of words across the air as radio. These achievements were fragile at first, experimental, uncertain, but soon they spread across the world, changing how humans spoke, travelled, remembered, and dreamed. From there, humanity turned, its gaze upward to the skies beyond the earth. To fly was once a dream as distant as the stars, but wings of wood and cloth became wings of steel, and soon the skies were filled with the roar of engines. And then, not content with the skies, humans reached beyond them, sending rockets into the black silence of space. For the first time, Earth was seen from afar, not as a vast and endless world, but as a fragile blue sphere floating in darkness. That image, simple and profound, was itself an achievement, a reflection, of how far the human story had come from the first flickers of firelight in the caves of early ancestors. But achievements are not only found in the tangible, in tools, cities, or machines. They are also within the intangible, the creations of the human mind and spirit. Music that carries across centuries, paintings that still move us with colour and form, poetry that whispers the thoughts of those long gone. These achievements may not build cities or move armies, but they build something else, meaning. They remind us that beyond survival, beyond progress, humanity has always sought to understand, to express, to create. And so, as you let your mind drift across this long journey of human achievement, you may see it as a mosaic, each piece fragile, each one placed by countless hands across countless generations. From seeds planted in soil to rockets leaving the earth, from marks pressed into clay to words glowing on screens, humanity's story has been shaped by achievements both great and small. Yet woven through it all is the reminder that these achievements are part of a much larger story. For as vast as they seem to us, they exist only within a brief span of Earth's life. The mountains endure longer than cities. The rivers carve deeper paths than roads. The stars will outlast our tallest towers. And so, as we marvel at our achievements, we are also reminded of their place, fragile, fleeting but meaningful within the grand story of time. Perhaps that is the greatest achievement of all, not only to survive, not only to build, but to know that we are here, in this moment, adding our chapter to Earth's vast unfolding tale. When you walk along a quiet beach, you leave behind footprints pressed into the sand. For a moment they are clear, an imprint of your presence, proof that you were there. But the tide is always moving, the wind is always shifting, and before long those footprints fade, erased by the sea or scattered by the breeze. Humanity's civilizations, for all their splendour, may not be so different. They too are imprints upon the shifting surface of time, fragile marks left in a world that has always been in motion. Imagine standing in the heart of a great ancient city, streets alive with markets, music and voices, the smell of bread baking, the sound of sandals against stone, the hum of life carried on by thousands of people. To those who lived there it must have seemed eternal, as if the walls and temples would stand forever, as if their way of life would never end. And yet today, those same places lie silent, crumbling under the weight of years. The voices are gone, the walls are broken, the streets are dust. Civilizations, like footprints, fade into memory and then into silence. Think of Mesopotamia, the land between rivers, where some of the first cities rose. The people of Uruk carved their lives into clay, built temples for their gods, and believed themselves part of a destiny that would endure. But the rivers shifted, the climate changed, wars swept across the land, and the heart of Mesopotamia grew quiet. Today, only ruins remain, scattered like broken shells along the shore of time. Or think of the Maya, whose great pyramids still rise out of the jungles of Central America, shrouded in vines. Once their cities were vibrant with ceremony, trade and learning, but drought, conflict and collapse brought their civilization low. The forest reclaimed what was left, until their presence became whispers among the trees. History is full of these echoes. The Egyptian kingdoms that built pyramids to touch the sky, the Roman Empire that stretched its reach across continents, the great dynasties of China, the empires of Africa, the cultures of the Americas. Each shone brightly, sometimes for centuries, even millennia. But in time, all of them waned. Their legacies remain: sculptures, writings, ruins, stories, but the living societies that built them are gone, as if swallowed by the tide. It is easy to think of collapse as failure, as tragedy. But in the story of Earth, it is simply change. Civilizations rise, flourish and fade, just as forests grow, burn and regrow, just as rivers swell and dry, just as mountains rise and erode. Humanity itself, for all its brilliance, is part of these cycles. No society lasts forever. Even our greatest achievements are not immune to time. Picture for a moment our own world thousands of years from now. Imagine the cities you know best. Towering skylines, glowing with lights, humming with life. Imagine them abandoned. The glass breaks, the steel rusts, the concrete crumbles. Vines climb the walls, trees sprout in the cracks of roads. The wind whistles through empty windows. What feels permanent now is only temporary given enough time. The earth is patient, and it will reclaim what we build as it has always done. But perhaps the question is not whether civilizations fade. It is what remains after they do. The ruins of Greece still speak of philosophy, democracy and art. The remnants of Egypt still tell of devotion, belief and craftsmanship. Even the fragments of forgotten peoples etched in rock or painted in caves whisper of creativity, resilience and life. The physical may crumble, but the ideas, those are harder to erase. They ripple forward, carried by memory, story and inspiration. Civilizations fade, but they also leave seeds. A language may vanish, but some of its words endure. A kingdom may fall, but its inventions may survive, shaping those who come after. In this way, even as footprints in sand are washed away, the journey they marked continues. Another walker steps forward, leaving new prints, shaped in part by those who walked before. And yet there is a humbling truth in this perspective. If even the mightiest civilizations have crumbled, what does that say about ours? We have built machines that circle the planet, towers that scrape the sky, and networks that connect billions of people in an instant. We imagine permanence in our technology, in our digital archives, in our global reach. But time is longer than memory, and nature is stronger than concrete. What we see as eternal may be only a brief spark, destined to fade. Imagine a future archaeologist, tens of thousands of years from now, sifting through the remnants of our age. What would they find? Perhaps fragments of plastic, twisted metal, buried concrete. Perhaps the fossilized remains of our machines. Maybe faint traces of satellites, drifting silent in orbit. Would they understand who we were? Or would we too be reduced to mystery? A civilization known only by ruins and relics, a story guessed at from fragments. There is a certain peace in this thought, to know that we are not eternal but temporary, part of the endless rhythm of rise and fall. Civilizations are like seasons, each with their own beauty, each with their own time. Spring blooms into summer, summer ripens into autumn, autumn yields to winter, and winter gives way again to spring. The earth endures, carrying forward while we pass through, leaving our traces, then fading. This does not make human life meaningless. On the contrary, it makes it precious. A footprint in the sand may last only a moment, but in that moment it is evidence of presence, of being. Our civilizations may vanish, but while they exist, they shape lives, create beauty, and spark imagination. And even when they fade, something of them endures, in ideas, in art, in the quiet persistence of memory. You might picture yourself walking through ruins one day, centuries old, their walls broken, their stones weathered. Around you, nature has returned, birds nesting where people once lived, flowers blooming where fires once burned. The silence is deep, yet not empty. The ruins speak softly, reminding you that others lived, dreamed, built and loved here. They remind you that civilization is not a permanent structure but a flowing river, always moving, always changing, And so, when we consider that civilizations fade like footprints in sand, we are invited to see our own time differently. Not as a final destination, not as the pinnacle of history, but as a moment within a vast and ongoing story. The Earth has seen countless ages before us, and it will see countless more after. Our role is not to resist that truth, but to embrace it, to live fully within our fleeting season, to create, to learn, to leave what traces we can, knowing that one day they, too, will fade. Perhaps the most enduring legacy we can leave is not the permanence of our structures, but the depth of our presence. To live with awareness, to build with care, to imagine with wonder. These are the footprints that, even if washed away, still carry meaning. For meaning does not depend on eternity. It depends on the life lived, the stories told, the dreams shared. And as the tide of time moves ever forward, washing away the marks of civilizations, one truth remains: we were here. For a brief and shining moment, humanity walked across the sands of Earth, leaving behind a pattern of footprints that, even as they fade, remind the universe of the beauty of being. What will the future remember of us? It is a question that drifts like a whisper across time, one that unsettles and comforts all at once. Imagine the Earth centuries, millennia, even millions of years from now, when the tide of history has washed over our age as surely as it did those before us. The cities we build, the songs we sing, the words we write, the technology we invent, what of it will survive and what will vanish? What pieces of us will echo through the ages, and what will dissolve like mist at dawn? If you stand today in the ruins of an ancient city, you can almost hear the ghost of this same question. The people of those times also wondered, perhaps, if their greatness would endure. The Egyptians inscribed their names into stone, hoping for eternity. The Mayans carved stories into temple walls, believing their gods and rituals would live on. The Romans etched their victories into monuments, confident their empire would never fall. Yet here we are, walking among their fragments, piecing together what little remains. From towering pyramids to broken pottery shards, from lost languages to faded songs, we reconstruct lives that once burned as brightly as ours. One day, we too will become fragments. Imagine a traveller in the far future, wandering among the ruins of our age. Perhaps they step into the collapsed shell of a skyscraper, its glass long gone, its steel skeleton rusting into the earth. Perhaps they sift through layers of soil and find shards of plastic, or a fossilized circuit board, or a fragment of writing. Would these fragments tell our story? Would they capture who we were? The laughter, the fear, the love, the longing? Or would we be reduced to curiosities, misunderstood and half forgotten? Our mark upon the earth is unique. Unlike any species before us, we have spread to every corner of the planet, leaving trails of our presence in landscapes that might never have known us otherwise. We have cut roads through mountains, carved canals into deserts, and lifted cities upon coastlines. We have scattered satellites into orbit, sending faint signals into the endless dark. We have etched our existence not only into stone, but into data, light, and code. Yet, will these truly endure the test of time? Stone crumbles, steel rusts, data fades, even light itself disperses. The earth is patient and it knows how to reclaim. Forests grow back over empty highways, oceans rise to swallow coasts, sand buries statues and streets. In the quiet rhythm of centuries, human creations dissolve, just as all things must. But if the material traces of our civilization are destined to fade, what then of memory? Perhaps what the future remembers of us will not be our monuments, but our stories. The tale of a species that dreamed beyond survival, that looked up at the stars and imagined travelling there. The memory of music carried across oceans, of poetry written in countless tongues, of paintings filled with colour and emotion. These may endure not as physical artefacts but as impressions passed on, carried forward, reshaped in each retelling. A song may be forgotten in its exact form, but the echo of its melody might survive in the hearts of future beings, transformed into something new. Imagine distant descendants, whether human or something evolved far beyond us, sitting around a fire or a gathering place, telling stories of their ancestors. Perhaps they speak of us with awe, recalling the strange age when people harnessed lightning for power, when voices were carried invisibly across the air, when machines walked the surface of other planets. They may imagine us as larger than life, as myth, just as we imagine ancient peoples through the haze of time. Or perhaps they will remember us more simply, as caretakers who faltered, as dreamers who tried, as beings who left behind both scars and wonders. The earth may hold within its soil the dual memory of our presence, forests cut and replanted, rivers dammed and freed, species lost and saved. We may be remembered as a contradiction, capable of destruction, but also capable of kindness and imagination. You might picture future eyes looking back upon our art, the paintings, sculptures, music, films, and words that tried to capture what it meant to be alive. For all our technologies and inventions, perhaps these will be our truest legacy. A painting can outlast an empire. A story can survive even when languages shift. A melody, carried in the mind, can leap across generations, reshaped but never fully lost. In this way, our art may be remembered longer than our machines, longer even than our cities. But there is another possibility. Perhaps what the future remembers of us will not be chosen by us at all, but by chance. A single library preserved in ash, as in Pompeii, a single building encased in desert sands, a satellite drifting endlessly, silent above the earth. In the randomness of preservation, what survives may not be what we value most, but what time and circumstance decide to keep. A child's toy may outlast a monument. A shopping list may survive longer than a novel. The earth decides, not us. Yet there is one record we have already sent into the future. The messages carried on spacecraft like Voyager, golden discs filled with the sounds of our world, greetings in dozens of languages, the laughter of children, the rush of wind and rain, the music of Bach and Beethoven, the heartbeat of a human being. These recordings drift now in the vastness of space, waiting for someone or something to discover them. Even if Earth forgets us, even if time erases our cities and our names, perhaps the stars themselves will remember. Still, even these cosmic messages are fragile. The discs may last 1 billion years, but even that is a blink compared to eternity. Beyond that, silence will reclaim them too. Nothing is truly permanent, and yet permanence may not be the point. What matters is not how long we are remembered, but how deeply we lived, how brightly we burned in the span we were given. The future's memory of us may be fleeting, but it may also be layered. Just as we remember ancient peoples in fragments, piecing together shards and ruins, so too might we be remembered in echoes and pieces. A fossil here, a structure there, a myth carried forward, a song adapted and sung anew. In that way, we live on, not as an unbroken chain, but as ripples spreading across the surface of time. And perhaps the greatest memory of us will not be written in stone or code, but in the earth itself, in the way we altered the atmosphere, leaving traces of our presence in the chemistry of air and ocean, in the layers of soil that carry particles of our industry, our fires, our plastics. Future geologists may read the rock and know us not through monuments, but through chemistry, the invisible record of a species that burned bright, changed the world, and then passed on. This thought may feel humbling, even melancholy, but there is also beauty in it. To be remembered by the earth itself is to be part of its living story, woven into the deep fabric of the planet. Just as ancient corals, long extinct, are remembered in the limestone they built, just as ancient forests are remembered in seams of coal, so too may we be remembered in the strata of the future. You might imagine walking far into the future, long after our time. The cities are gone, the roads erased, but the air still carries traces of us. The soil still holds our record, and the stars above still shine on the places we once stood. Even if no one speaks our names, the fact that we were here, that we lived, dreamed, built, and reached is written into the universe itself. So what will the future remember of us? Perhaps only fragments, perhaps myths, perhaps a song, perhaps nothing at all. But in truth, memory is not the measure of our worth. Whether remembered for millennia or forgotten tomorrow, we are part of something vast, something that stretches beyond remembering. And while we are here, we have the chance to live, to create, to love, to wonder, and that may be enough. For in the end, even if our footprints in the sand are washed away, the fact remains that for a time, we walked here, we left traces, we existed, and existence itself is the most profound memory of all. The earth will outlast us. That truth is quiet but undeniable, like the slow turning of the seasons or the pull of the tides. Humanity may see itself as the centre of history, as the culmination of evolution, as the measure of what the world has been moving toward. But the planet has been here long before us, and it will remain long after. To reflect on this is not to diminish what we are, but to place us gently into perspective, to see ourselves as a brief passing chapter in a much longer story. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the earth without people. The cities that seem so permanent begin to empty, their streets slowly breaking under the weight of silence. Weeds sprout through cracks in the pavement. Birds nest in broken windows. Trees take root in courtyards where once there was concrete. The rusting skeletons of bridges collapse into rivers that carve their own paths again, unconcerned with the roads we once travelled. Within decades, nature begins to reclaim everything we built. Within centuries, almost all trace of us is softened, swallowed, absorbed. This is not speculation. It has happened before, in miniature, in places we abandoned even for a short time. The city of Pripyat near Chernobyl, deserted for just a few decades, now pulses with wild growth, animals returning as if the concrete had never been laid. Ancient cities buried in jungles disappear into green so completely that they must be rediscovered. Even without catastrophe, nature is patient. Left alone, it always returns, and so it would if we were gone. The earth doesn't need us to thrive. Its forests will spread without our care. Its rivers will flow without our engineering. Its skies will clear when our smoke is gone. Species may vanish under our watch, but others will rise to take their place, as they always have. Life is resilient, shifting, adapting, pressing forward. In deep time, extinction and renewal are two sides of the same coin, and though we may mourn the species we've lost, the earth itself is not fragile. It is enduring, endlessly capable of healing itself in ways our short lives cannot fully grasp. Think of the great cycles the earth has already seen. It has frozen from pole to pole in deep ancient ice ages, then thawed again into warmth. It has burned under the fury of volcanoes and then cooled under quiet rains. It has seen continents drift apart, oceans open and close, mountains rise and crumble. It has endured impacts from asteroids that shattered skies and boiled seas, only to give rise to new forests and new creatures. In all this, the earth continued, and it will continue long after humanity has stepped aside. You might imagine the earth 1,000,000 years from now. Perhaps our species has already passed into memory, and the world has shifted into forms we cannot picture. New animals move across the plains, strange forests sway in the wind, the air carries a different scent of life. The continents have drifted a little farther, the climate has shifted again, glaciers grown or melted, oceans deepened or retreated. In that world we are gone, but the earth is still full of rhythm, still moving to its quiet, unhurried pulse. Extend that vision further, tens of millions of years. By then, mountain ranges that today scrape the skies may have worn down into gentle hills, while elsewhere new mountains rise in fresh collisions of land. Whole oceans may vanish, others born. Creatures beyond imagination may walk, swim, or fly. In that distant age, the earth will bear almost no resemblance to the one we know today, just as our world would be unrecognizable to the dinosaurs of the past. We will be as forgotten to them as they are to us. The earth will have turned its page and the story will continue without our voices. Even farther, hundreds of millions, even billions of years. The earth itself will face slow, inexorable changes. The sun will grow brighter, hotter as it ages. The oceans will begin to evaporate, the air will thin, the climate will shift into extremes that no species we know could endure. Eventually, the earth may become uninhabitable for life as we understand it, and still the planet will persist, turning in its orbit, until one day the sun expands so greatly that it engulfs the earth entirely. Only then, after billions of years of change, will the earth's long journey finally come to its end. But until that far-off future, the planet remains, vast and resilient. Humanity may see itself as fragile in the face of these immense scales, but there is also a strange comfort here. The earth does not depend on us. Our survival may be uncertain, but the planet's endurance is not. It is a reminder that we are part of something larger than ourselves, something that stretches far beyond our lifetimes, far beyond the lifespan of our species. And yet, while the earth will outlast us, we are not without meaning. Our lives, though brief in the measure of geologic time, are still part of the earth's story. Our voices, our actions, our dreams, they ripple outward, leaving impressions in soil, in stone, in memory. For however long we remain, we shape the world, and the world shapes us. We're not separate from the earth. We are its children, its brief experiment, its current chapter. There is humility in knowing the earth does not need us, but there is also freedom. For while we are here, we can choose how we live, how we leave our traces, how we care for the planet that nurtures us. We can see ourselves not as masters of the earth, but as part of its unfolding, as participants in a story that will continue long after we are gone. Picture yourself standing on the shore of an ancient sea, waves rolling in steady rhythm. Long before you, other beings stood in other forms, watching different seas, hearing different winds. Long after you, others will stand again, though perhaps they will not look anything like us. The shoreline will remain, even if it shifts. The waves will continue, even if their shapes change. The rhythm is older than us, and it will endure beyond us. This awareness can soften the weight of our fears. We often worry about permanence, about legacy, about being remembered. But perhaps what matters is not what remains of us, but that we lived in harmony with this vast, enduring world. The earth will go on whether or not it remembers our names, and perhaps that is enough. To exist for a moment within something so ancient, so enduring, is already a kind of immortality. When you look at the stars, you might wonder how small and fleeting we are. But when you look at the Earth, you see that we are part of something immense, something that has carried life through unimaginable epochs and will continue to do so long after us. To be a small part of that story is not a diminishment, it is a gift. So let us breathe with this awareness. The Earth is ancient and it is patient. It does not rush, it does not cling, it does not worry about endings. It simply turns, cycles, renews. And when our time has passed, it will continue, carrying other forms of life, other dreams, other chapters. The Earth will outlast us. And in that truth, there is sorrow, yes, but also serenity. For though we may not remain forever, we are here now, alive upon this enduring planet, part of its vast unfolding. And that is enough. The story of Earth is not finished. It is unfolding, moment by moment, in silence and in motion, in winds that circle the globe and in rivers that trace their paths back to the sea. We often think of history as something behind us, something written and completed, but in truth, we are inside it. Every breath you take is part of that history. Every step, every glance, every choice continues the story that began long before you and will continue long after. The Earth itself is still writing. Its mountains shift, its oceans swell and recede. Its skies hold the weight of storms that come and go. Beneath the surface, molten rock still flows, reshaping the continents grain by grain. Above us, the atmosphere shifts with every sunrise and every falling night. Life adapts, grows, vanishes, and reappears in new forms. There has never been a pause, never a still frame. The planet is always in motion, always carrying the story forward. And we, for a brief moment, have been given the chance to add our words to this immense narrative. Our civilizations rise and fall, our ideas blossom, our inventions scatter across the landscape of time. The paintings on ancient cave walls, the fragments of poems, the ruins of forgotten cities, all are threads in this fabric. Some threads will unravel, others will endure, but all of them together form a pattern that belongs to this moment of Earth's life. Think of yourself, just as you are now, the sound of your heartbeat, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet thoughts drifting like clouds through your mind. You are part of this unfolding story in ways you cannot always see. You're connected to those who came before and to those who may yet come after. The air you breathe carries whispers of ancient forests. The water you drink once moved through glaciers and seas older than humanity itself. The atoms in your body were forged in stars that lived and died long before Earth was even born. You're both fleeting and eternal, a passing note and yet also part of the endless song. When you step outside and look around, you might see concrete and glass, streets and lights, the marks of our human age. Yet beneath and around them, the Earth continues its quiet cycles. Grass pushes through the smallest cracks. Clouds gather and drift, ignoring the boundaries of our maps. The moon still tugs at the ocean, as it has for billions of years, as it will long after the lights of our cities have faded. What feels like permanence is only a moment. What feels like fragility is part of something vast and enduring. The long story is not written only in stone or stars. It is written in you, in the kindness you offer, in the love you carry, in the way your presence changes the lives around you. These are not minor notes. They are part of what it means to be human, part of what our brief moment contributes to the unfolding of Earth's time. Perhaps the cosmos does not record our names, but the ripples of what we do move outward, shaping lives, shaping moments, weaving into the fabric of the story. You might wonder what will remain of us. Will future beings find fragments of our cities, bones of our animals, strange relics buried in layers of stone? Or will almost nothing endure, just faint traces worn thin by oceans and sand? Whatever remains, it will be only a fragment of what we were. Yet perhaps that is how it has always been. The dinosaurs left bones, but not their voices. The first forest left coal, but not their shade. What survives is never the fullness of what was lived, and yet even fragments carry meaning. Even silence carries memory. The Earth's long story is not about permanence. It is about change, about cycles that turn endlessly, about forms that rise and fade, about energy that shifts but is never lost. To know this is to see that our place is not outside the story but within it, fragile but real, fleeting but meaningful. Perhaps, then, the question is not how long we remain, but how we live while we are here, to walk gently on this earth, to see the beauty in each passing day, to leave space for what comes next, for the stories still unwritten. Our presence is a chapter, not the book itself, and like every chapter it will end. But the book continues, the story goes on, so imagine yourself not at the end, but within the flow. The stars wheel above you as they have for every generation before. The earth turns beneath your feet, steady and unhurried. Waves roll upon distant shores. Seeds fall into soil and sprout into new life. Somewhere, deep in the forest, a bird you will never see calls out to the morning. Somewhere in the ocean, a creature older than your city drifts silently in the current. These things happen whether you notice them or not, but they are part of the same story, the same unfolding that holds you to. We do not know what the far future will bring. We do not know what worlds will come after us, or who will look back, if anyone does, to wonder at our brief time. But we can know this: the earth is not finished. It is alive with possibility, alive with transformation, alive with stories yet untold. And so, as we come to the end of this journey together, let us rest in the awareness that the story is still being written, that tomorrow will add its words, and so will the day after. That even when our part is done, the earth will continue to weave its narrative, page after page, moment after moment, with the same quiet persistence it has always carried. For neither, you can let go of questions and worries. You can let the weight of time soften into calm. You're here, you're part of this long story, and that is enough. The earth holds you, as it always has, as it always will, until it writes the next chapter and the next and the next. Good night.